Welcome to the Search for Wellness podcast, where we embark on inspiring conversations to explore the many facets of health and well-being. I'm your host, Pooja, a certified fitness instructor, the co-owner of Beyond Body Fitness Studios. I'm also a qualified health coach, breath coach, and proud to say, a cancer coach. My personal journey towards wellness took a profound turn when I faced a cancer diagnosis 2 years ago. Despite leading a relatively healthy lifestyle, I realized that my understanding of well-being was limited at that time. This unexpected challenge ignited my quest for knowledge and a deep desire to restore balance and harmony into my body and life. Now, I'm here to share the wisdom and insights I've gained, because what's the point of all this knowledge if I can't share it? In today's fast-paced and stressful world, prioritizing our physical, mental, and emotional well-being is more critical than ever. This podcast aims to delve into a wide range of wellness aspects, from longevity, fitness, and supplements, to alternative practices like homeopathy, acupuncture, and sound therapy, as well as nutrition, diet, and innovative therapies. Through this platform, I'm committed to helping you make simple and sustainable changes that seamlessly fit into your daily life, empowering you to live a happy, healthy, and fulfilling life. Let's embark on this inspiring journey together and meet our special guest today. Introducing Heather Cuthbert, a dedicated nutritional therapist, savvy owner of a wholesome cafe in Village Market called Heather's Kitchen, and a nurturing mother of 2. Born and raised in Kenya and truly passionate about crafting nourishing food and beverages, Heather embodies the essence of wholesome living and holistic wellness. Welcome, Heather.
Oh, thank you. Great to be here.
I'm so happy to have you here. Obviously, the listeners don't know this, but we are also part of the school, so
yes, exactly.
Mums of the same school.
Yes.
And we have actually hosted an event together also, where you supplied the food and stuff and all your yummy, nutritious juices and snacks. That was really nice.
It was so lovely.
So tell us a bit more about yourself.
Okay, so I was born and brought up here in Nairobi, like you said, which was just such a great place to kind of be as a kid. I was a very outdoorsy kid, loved sports. And so at school, I did a lot of cooking at home with my mum and loved all of that. And then at secondary school, I decided to do food studies. It was quite great that there was such a thing to study kind of GCSE and A-level. So I did that with kind of sciences. I was always into my sciences and loved that. And actually, even at a young age, for our exams and things, we had to do cook 7 meals for, we had a different exam questions, and maybe it was someone who's anemic or someone who's got osteoarthritis or something. So we had to cook specifically for those patients, and that was at secondary school. So that kind of spurred things on with me. After that, I decided to go and do a cordon bleu cookery course before I started university. So that was learning to make your flaky pastries. Not very healthy way of cooking, but it was quite kind of good to see how to make basic things. And I actually did anatomy at university at Bristol, and that was a really tough course, really tricky, but very interesting. And then after that, I just had no idea what to do. I didn't know which way to go. I was thinking maybe physiotherapy, but nutrition hadn't even come there yet. Until I did a personal training course straight after uni. And it was actually the nutrition side of that course which was just so interesting to me. So then after that, I went and signed up for 3 years of nutritional therapy in London. And that's how it kind of began. Since then, I went on to kind of cooking in a different style. I started doing cookery lessons in London, making alternatives to the usual dishes that we eat, but with different ingredients. At that point, I then had clients who couldn't eat dairy, or were vegan, or were intolerant to gluten. So my cooking came quite specific, and I wanted to help clients kind of ease them into the process of getting rid of certain trigger foods by giving them recipes or showing them how to kind of create these meals easily. So that's where it all kind of stemmed from. And then I moved back here and started my own food range, which is really exciting. I also made a cookbook in 2019, which I love, and I just needed it for my own benefit too, because I wanted somewhere where I could just quickly find all my usual recipes. So that's exciting. And now I have a cafe at Village. So it's a year old now.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, that
Already
is kind of
a
my
year
part.
old.
Yeah, exactly.
How amazing. So
Yeah.
tell us a little bit more about your cafe.
Okay.
And about the food that you create. I know you sell a few products on Green Spoon.
Yeah, just a small range. I started off when I moved back from the UK, and I started selling them on like the fairs, just a really small little stall I had. And I would sell my dehydrated sukuma wiki crisps, so we kind of coat those in cashew nuts and red pepper, nutritional yeast, and a little bit of Himalayan salt, and we dehydrate those so it kind of retains the nutrients. And they're kind of, you still get that satisfying crunch from them, but it's kind of a healthier version of crisps. So we do those. I do granola, so just a really simple, really cinnamony granola with flax seeds and almonds. And then we do 3 different nut butters. So I do a pure almond butter. I do a mixed butter, which tends to be a lot of people's favorites because it's got almond, cashews, and macadamia. So really creamy. And then we do like a healthier version of Nutella. So that's macadamia, cacao, and a bit of honey. So those are the food range that we do, and I sell at Green Spoon and a few kind of cafes around Kenya as well, and at the cafe as well. And then the cafe has just always been my dream. I've literally had a file in my computer from like 10 plus years ago with like Heather's dream cafe. So I'm quite glad that I just went for it. It was quite a hectic time in my life. My littlest one was still only I think she was 1.5 or something. So it was quite an exhausting year, but at the same time, it was just so exciting because I've always wanted to do it. So it wasn't like a chore. It was just like I got up in the morning and I was just excited for the day. And even now it's a year old, but I just love going there, seeing what's going on, what's their favorite dish, who's buying what, and then actually going there and being able to, know that my food hasn't got X, Y, and Z in it. So it's a really nice thing. So the cafe itself, it's just a really small corner of Village Market in the new wing in the food mall. And trying to make it homey, so it looks like someone's kitchen really, so you're kind of sitting in someone's kitchen. We do kind of breakfast options, we do birch and mueslis, granolas, we do avocado toast, but we do it with a twist. So we've got like a pumpkin seed pesto that we put on that. We do kind of lots of salad bowls and nice warming soups and things. So it's coming along, and it's quite alternative. There's not much like that around. We do like cashew nut cheeses. So people, if they've not heard of this, they're kind of like, what is that? So it takes some time to kind of try things, and then they actually really like them. So we do turmeric lattes, beetroot lattes, matcha lattes. They're quite a big hit. And then the usual coffees and teas and juices and smoothies. And then I actually do, which is one kind of bit more, I love baking. So we make cakes and I use kind of cashew nuts instead of flour and dates instead of sugar and that kind of way of cooking. And we do like protein balls where, we've got really nice matcha balls at the moment where we use matcha powder, some of my nut butter and some protein powder. So it kind of, when you're a little bit hungry mid-morning, it kind of hits that spot and gets you through to lunchtime. So it helps to kind of balance your blood sugars. So yeah, that's the cafe really, and I love it.
So nice. Honestly, just you talking about it, I'm hungry. I want to go there. I want to go and eat right now.
I know.
I have been to your cafe and I absolutely love it.
Great.
Do you feel like Nairobi is willing and open to trying stuff like this? Do you feel like they're ready for all of this?
Yeah. I mean, it was a
What's
slow
the
start.
feedback?
Yeah, the start was slow. I think, like I said, when you see my menu, when you're looking there and you see kind of cashew nut cheese on toast or sun-dried tomato hummus, you might think, oh, that sounds a bit plain, maybe a bit bland, a bit weird. And then it's more, we have to actually, because a lot of customers come, they have the standard Avo toast, you know, they'll have the bean and lentil salad because they kind of know those things. So we're now trying to get people to try the other things, and actually it's a big hit. So it's coming, and I think the biggest thing we've noticed is all our customers are all repeat customers. So it's not like we get a customer who comes and then heads off and doesn't come back. So I'm hoping that's a really positive thing, because a lot of our customers we know now, like they come often. So we just now need to kind of spread that word to kind of the bigger population, get more people trying these things. But it is growing, so fingers crossed, yeah.
And I think it's amazing that you do this, and the awareness about this.
Yeah.
The fact that you can go to a cafe and eat everything you want, except know that it's full of health, full of nutrition, full of all this goodness that is good for your body, good for your mind, good for your soul, good for your children too.
Exactly. Well, that's the thing, you know, I had a lot of digestive issues growing up, and, you know, with my nutrition course, that really helped me so much. You know, just cutting out certain things, eating more of, you know, veggies and plant-based as well, really helped me with energy levels, etc. So I know it really helps. And then my kids, they grew, when they were really little, they had silent reflux, which was really, really hard actually. And, you know, trying to get it right with what foods it was in my breast milk that was causing this was quite tricky. So we figured out it was dairy and eggs, and so even now we're still trying to introduce them. We can only kind of do small amounts, but we're building it up. But just back, you know, a few years ago, like going out for dinner with them or meals with them was so tricky, because there was always something in it. You, as much as you tried to explain to them not to put, you know, butter or a little bit of milk, there was always something that would be triggering their stomachs. So like having my cafe there, you know, they can have, you know, their milks, they can have whatever they want from the cafe, and I know they'll be all right. So it's quite nice to have that. So the cafe is completely dairy free actually, not because I have anything against dairy, but more just for people. There are so many people who have an intolerance to dairy, so it's kind of a safe place for those individuals. Yes, you can order, you know, your normal cow milk with your coffee if you want, but all the food and everything is totally free of dairy. We also cater for kind of customers with gluten intolerance. So we do lovely flaxseed crackers, which come with the salads and the soups, and you can have gluten-free bread, and, you know, so it does cater for those customers too. Vegan as well, we do a lot of vegan meals, so anyone who's vegan or anyone even with an egg allergy, we cater for that as well. The only thing we don't cater for is nut allergies, because we do use a lot of nuts, but yeah.
And you know, funny thing you're saying about the kids, my daughter was also born with severe eczema, and she was allergic to dairy and eggs. So I cut out dairy and eggs for my diet, and because I breastfed her for the first year of her life. And it was amazing, because when I cut it out, I realized how fantastic I felt.
You felt, exactly.
And I was like, wait, what am I doing? Why have I been consuming dairy, specifically dairy? And I completely, since then, never went back to dairy. I've never gone back to it because I felt so amazing.
It's quite common actually with a few people. I think a lot of people don't realize what is their normal, because I think, you know, when you grow up and you maybe have a few clients who maybe don't go to the bathroom for like 5 days or 7 days, and that's their normal.
Exactly.
But that's not normal.
No.
So it's just kind of, you know, when you get that kind of light bulb moment, when you feel better because you've stopped eating a certain food, or you're eating more of something, you know, it's just that light bulb moment. Oh my God, I feel so much better. Why did I not realize, you know? So it's,
I think that's amazing. And also what I like about the fact that what you're doing is practicing nutrition and helping people change their diet, change their lifestyle, to figure out things that they think are the norm, but are not the norm, are actually completely the opposite. So how do you advertise that you're a nutritionist? How does it work?
So I do see clients. I probably don't see as many clients now because I spend quite a lot of my time at the cafe. But I advertise. I don't really advertise. I hate self-advertising actually. So this is like one of the steps that I was worried about coming here. That I don't like self-advertising, but I think my passion at the moment is children's nutrition. Yes, I see a lot of adults and that is also quite enjoyable. But the kids is I'm very passionate about, because I do think that's where we need to start. Is if we can start with these little people, who think the world of you. You have so much key opportunities to kind of influence their eating habits and their behaviors. And so I do think if we can try and really get those guys on board, then their generation will be completely different and a healthier generation. Yeah.
And I totally agree with you. And that's actually one of the main reasons I actually wanted you here today, is because I think every time we've spoken and we've met at birthday parties or any event or anything, that's like been our core thing, is bringing up our kids in a way that they understand health, food, nutrition in a different way. And this is why I wanted you here today, to try and explain and try and make people understand how important it is and how essential it is. We have so much power over these little beings.
That's what
we are their world. Whatever we feed them, they do it. They believe us and they trust us with all their heart. And so why would we be feeding them things that are not good for them? But unfortunately, the problem is that most people don't know that these things are not good for them.
It's the education.
It's the education behind it.
Totally.
So please talk a little bit more about that.
I know. I think it's tricky. I think what we need to now think about is, instead of trying to treat all these kind of chronic diseases that are coming about kind of in our later years, and really trying to prevent them, and a way to do that is to help with our little people. Like you said, they're like little sponges. They love you so much. They trust everything you say. And if you're eating, a bowl of beetroot and chicken and avocado and potatoes, they're going to see what you're eating and they want to do the same. So I really, really, really passionately think by kind of starting with these guys and consistently kind of showing them how to eat healthily will really empower them to make kind of really positive food choices from now, and then hopefully help them health-wise later on. So it's something that I really would love to try and spread the word and like get it into schools, and really try and work with these kids, because I think that's the future of everyone eating whole foods and getting rid of kind of these processed foods that are so readily available. But I think at the early ages, when your kids are so little, look at them, how they grow in a year. They learn to eat solid foods in a year of their life. They were on a diet purely of milk, and then in 6 months' time, they're now eating food like you and I. Like, we can really influence this. They take a while to crawl, they take a while to communicate, but they all learn so many skills so early on. So why not, utilize this key opportunity and really kind of bring them together and make sure they're eating a varied diet from the age of 6 months. And that's where it should start, really. So I think anyone out there who thinks they've got a fussy eater or anything, don't worry. These things, they can still learn. Yes, it's a slower process, but it's just being consistent and making sure that you're giving them variety out there. It can be tricky though. I think a lot of mums, they know that their little kid will only eat, plain pasta and broccoli. So that's their like go-to meal. That's their easy thing. They'll just quickly do a bowl of pasta and some broccoli because they know their kid's going to eat it. And it then goes into a bit of a vicious cycle because you kind of now are kind of cutting down the amount of foods you're giving to your kid because you think that they'll only eat those foods. But I think by consistently bringing in these new foods, yes, put on the plate something that you know they're going to eat, but then add something new. And it's just about that kid forming a bit of trust and a bit more exposure. Every time you expose a kid to food, the more chances they are of accepting it. So yeah, I have lots of tips for you, and everyone out there, to try and get their kids to enjoy meal times, to actually want to try new foods, and then, the main thing is role modeling. What you do at home, or what the cousins are doing, or whatever it is, it's really, really important for your kids. They see you eating a nice, well-balanced meal with them, they're going to want to do the same. If their cousin's a really good eater, and you know that, then get them to eat together for a meal a week or something, Role modeling is really important, yeah. So I think for my tips going forward for these kids, it's, firstly, I think routine. They love kind of consistency and like a schedule. So, when you're weaning your little one at 6 months, I'm sure you remember it was like, you start off with one meal a day, but that one meal a day is quite important when you give it to them. You give it to them when they're too hungry. Nightmare. You give it to them when they're not hungry enough because they've just had a bottle of milk. They're not going to eat anything. Or if you give the food to them when they're needing a nap, they're too tired. It's just not going to work. So it's really key to get them those meals at the right time. And that's just, all our kids are so unique, and everyone's got their little individual bodies. And, like my 2 kids, one of them needs 3 meals a day, and definitely 2 snacks as well, like mid-morning and mid-afternoon. Otherwise, blood sugars just go crazy. They really dip, and he'll have a little bit of a tantrum.
Yeah.
Whereas my second kid will actually, I find that if she does have one of those snacks in between, it kind of ruins her main meal. So, for her, I sometimes give her something small, and then it kind of improves what she eats at dinner time. But my little boy needs kind of a quite a substantial snack, and then he'll eat loads of dinner, but he needs kind of that consistency. So I think it's just about seeing what your kid is, because they've all got different metabolisms, so just kind of seeing what they want and what works for them as well. So that's one of them. So kind of routine and when they have their meals is quite key. The second thing I think is pressure. I think as parents, and I totally get it, it's, you feel like your kid needs to eat, you feel like they need to grow, and in order for them to grow, they need to eat everything on their plate. And it puts a lot of pressure on our kids, and that actually completely has a negative impact on eating and meal times, and the kids just tend to then not really want to go and sit down at the table, because there's always some kind of nagging at you, or like some kind of negative energy around it. So I think the key is just to be as relaxed as you can. I know it's tricky, but these kids are amazing. Like, they can really, they're in tune with their hunger cues and their full cues. Like, they know what to eat and how much to eat when they're little. So just listen to them and let them, I'm not saying let them pick what they're going to eat for dinner. I'm saying, have your plate all laid out, but let them decide how much they're going to eat and what they're going to eat. So, some days one of them might eat broccoli and the protein, veggies and the protein, and leave their carbohydrates. That's okay, because you'll probably find that the next meal they'll go crazy for their pasta or whatever, and not touch kind of their protein source then. So they kind of just know intuitively what they need, and I think the best thing is just to let them be, and they will choose what they need. I think the thing that it's tricky is a lot of parents, one more spoon, and pushing your kid over that full, that they know they're full, so don't push it, just leave it. No, it's tricky, but it does really work as well. You take the pressure off, they're okay. And then there's certain things I've noticed from just my kids on, positive reinforcement, and just small things, and the language you use at meal times as well really has an effect. So, instead of being focusing on only the vegetable, you haven't eaten your vegetable, you haven't eaten vegetables, you're like, oh, I love what you've done. You've added sweet potato to your kidney beans. Is that like a little flavor bomb in your mouth? Just small things that try and make them think, ooh, I can like try broccoli and, you know, a little bit of egg and a little bit of my nice hummus, and I've got like in my mouth, I've got a little taste explosion, you know. It's just small ways and getting them excited about, you know, trying out different things on their plate. So yeah, those are two. And then what was the other one I wanted to talk? Role modeling. But role modeling, yeah. You know, I think it's hard in, you know, we've all got busy lives. It's not that easy to sit down with our kids at meal times, but, you know, it really is important to try and make that a big thing in the family.
Yeah.
So, you know, sit down for breakfast, make sure everyone's eating breakfast, not just your kids. You know, mum's always rushing around making food, but that mum needs to sit down and also eat with her kids. If they think that mum doesn't have breakfast, they're like, why is mum not having breakfast? You know, they click on to these things, you know, or, you know, you're eating your dinner and dad's not eating his potatoes or something, and he's mentioned his jiggly wobbly belly or something, you know. These kids, they listen and they really are like listening to what you're doing.
Absolutely.
So you are their role models. You eat what you're telling them to eat. If you've made broccoli on their plate and some nice beetroot on their plate, you have broccoli and beetroot on your plate, you know. You know, make them see that these are really good foods and we all eat them together as a family. And I think the other thing that I think is so important is making it fun. Like mealtime should be fun. It should be a time where you're together as a family. You get to tell stories from the day. It's a nice, like a safe environment, and keep that, because that's what they love. Kids love the safe environment. So if food time is like making funny jokes at the table, everyone's eating, don't focus it too much on the food, but just enjoy, you know, the environment. And you know, also kids, they like a little variety, so maybe do a picnic every now and then. Maybe they can eat dinner in their teepee for fun one night. You could play musical chairs around the table to get them like excited by where they're going to sit for the meal. You could play you could play like a nice song at meal times. You get them to, they set the table, you know, maybe a cool new tablecloth makes a difference. Or you could have new placemats, or put some flowers on the table. Make it exciting, make it fun, you know. It shouldn't be like a chore to go and have your lunch and dinner. It should be like an enjoyable moment.
Exactly.
So I think that's really important. And I think, you know, also I found with my little ones, they love dipping. So, you know, if they have fish fingers, they want to dip it into something. So whether it's, you know, olive oil, or maybe it's even hummus or tahini or nut butter, you know. Mine, they love avocado mayonnaise, which we just blend up an avocado. That's just their favorite thing, is dipping. So that can also be a fun thing to do, you know. Eggs, boiled eggs, and soldiers, you know, little breadsticks, and they dip that in. They love these things. So just make it enjoyable for the kid as well. And I'm just trying to think what else I would say is really great. Oh, and then, education around the food is great. So, you know, I don't mean like saying this food is bad and this food is good. It's more like saying, you know, keeping up with variety, making sure that your kid understands to vary their diet, to have, you know, different vegetables, different color, eat the rainbow, you know, little things to kind of bring into them so they understand a little bit more. And why, you know, protein, like maybe you say, you know, beans are protein and they help us kind of feel a bit fuller for a bit longer. So, you know, we don't feel like we want to cry because our sugars have gone down a little bit. That protein's going to help us with energy levels and keeping those energy levels stable. It's just little snippets of little kind of nutritional tips, and so they can understand a little bit about why they're eating these things. Exactly. So I think those are my main things. I was trying to think if I've left anything. I did put it here because it's so important. Oh yes, I've forgotten one really good one. Exposure. So actually exposing a kid to food is like the most important thing. They say it takes like 15 or more times of exposure to something for a kid to accept it or to like eat it. So I don't mean like exposure just by putting it on their plate and them eating it. Yes, that is exposure, but you know, cooking the food, that's a massive exposure to food. Get your kids involved in shopping. Take them to the supermarket, take them to the farmer's market, get them to pick the best limes or the best mangoes, or get them really involved and putting them in your basket. They're now like seeing all these fruits and vegetables. That's exposure. Exactly. And so when you put some kind of food on their plate after something like that, they'll be like, oh, Mama, is this the mango I chose from the shop? It kind of links it. And also growing your own food, which we love doing at home, is like getting kids to see how this food has come about. That tiny little seed is now grown into a courgette, and now we get to eat it, get them to cut it up, get them to cook it so they can see the whole process. So I think it's really important, and also you could sing songs about food. I remember when mine were little, they had a book called Avocado Baby, and I mean, they were obsessed by these avocados, and still are. So I do think small things like this do really help. Getting them involved in food preparation, or even in like choosing what's for dinner. So give them, I'm not saying just tell them they can be in charge of dinner, but maybe give them a choice. Should we have stir fry or should we have wraps, and they'll be like, ooh, wraps tonight, So getting them, and they'll feel important in their decision. And then when it's actually wrap time, they'll be like, I chose this is great. And more incentive for them to try it.
Preparing meals together as a family has become a very big thing for me and my family. The boys, they love cooking, so they're like, amazing. I'll cook. Sometimes it's actually a bit chaotic in my kitchen, because all three of them will be like, they want to cook. And when you said about like kids are a reflection of what you eat, and it's so true. If I look at like, we're Indian, right? I love my Indian food. I absolutely love, and it's such a well-balanced meal. You have your protein, you have your veggies, everything. My husband, he's Indian, but he's not a big fan of Indian food. And so he'll always make the remark, oh, not Indian again. Or he'll say, anything but Indian. What do you want for dinner? Anything but Indian. And my boys now say the same thing.
You see?
And then my daughter, who loves Indian food, will say, anything but Indian. I don't like Indian food. But I'm like, but you like idli. And she's like, but that's not Indian. And I'm like, no, that is Indian. Like, she'll be like, no, that's Italian. She'll just change it just so that she can believe that that's the belief system
that's
she
the
has.
Thing. See, they just copy you. And it's the same at school. I have like one of my kids come home, and then they've got, I don't know, cauliflower on their plate, and they're like, I don't like cauliflower. And I'm like, that's okay, that's a new thing, because you normally love cauliflower, and it's because friends at school, they're all chatting, and one says they don't like something, and then they think he's cool, so yeah, me too, it's like so it's a tricky one, but if you keep consistent, you'll see that yes, they'll still eat your Indian food. Yes, he'll still eat his cauliflower.
I do. I mean, I am one of those moms who's like, this is what you're gonna get.
Exactly.
Take it or leave it, and if you don't eat it, that's going in your lunch tomorrow.
Exactly.
And talking about school lunches, so I'm quite lucky because my boys are in a school where they are allowed to take packed lunches.
Oh yeah, that's easier.
And a lot of schools don't have that option, like the school that our kids are in, and the one that my daughter and your son is in. And I don't know, but for me, school lunches are quite concerning, because we'll do all of this at home.
I know.
But then what about what they're eating in school?
It is a tricky one, and it's something that I really want to try and get out there with schools. I think school should be a safe place. I think school should be a place where, we don't have sweets. Kids aren't to bring in sweets for birthdays. They aren't to bring in all of this. I think because it's not fair for those who at home, they don't eat that way.
The norm needs to change, right?
Exactly, the norm does need to change, and it is a tricky one. Like my kids, they don't really eat sweet stuff and don't really have kind of sweets and stuff. So
and
when
they don't have the sugar craving either, right?
Yeah. And when they get exposed to this, it's just like it starts to be a bit of a hype, because obviously everyone talks about these things, so it becomes like these sweet things are now on a pedestal. They're a special thing, they're a big deal, which is a bit sad, because I don't think those kind of foods should be up there. I think all food should kind of be even, and nothing should be kind of especially things that aren't doing so much for your body. So I think that also brings me back, I'll come back to the school thing, but it also brings me to like using food as like a form of a reward. That is something I really find tricky, and I know, and I'm not judging anyone who does do it.
Okay. It's like, take the dog out for a poo and a pee. If he does a poo and a pee, you get a chocolate. It's like, dog.
You see, I think just from my experience, because I have many clients, like older clients, who have kind of got a poor relationship with food, and it kind of stems from childhood. If they did something really great at school, or they did the chores or whatever, they would get a chocolate, or they would get a sweet, or they'd get some ice cream, or whatever it is, and it always seemed to be something on the sweeter side that was their treat. So it becomes like those things are like the special thing, you know. And I think when you grow up, I have clients who they've either had a really bad day at work, and to kind of pick them up, they'll go and eat a big tub of ice cream, or like they'll eat all the biscuits, a little bit of kind of a binge kind of eating situation. And it's like stems from kids, some kids go and have an injection, and then because they were so brave, they'll go and have an ice cream. You'll treat them to an ice cream. And I think that's why I'd love to move away from using food as a form of reward, because it tends to be the wrong type of food, I feel, that's used as a reward system. So I think I'd love to try and get people to move away from that. And the same as, if they're eating their main course, and in order for them to eat their broccoli, you say, I will give you an ice cream after this if you eat your broccoli. So now broccoli's kind of down here on the scale of how awesome broccoli is, because what's taking over is the ice cream on the pedestal. You're putting this thing as like this amazing thing, because they're now going to eat their broccoli, but they don't really want to eat their broccoli. So now that is getting a negative. They don't really like broccoli because they're getting forced to eat something they don't really want to eat at that moment, and they're getting this sugary thing in return. So it's a tricky one. So
can you just also explain why sugar is so bad?
I think that's a big conversation.
Because of the amount of sugar, right? It's not actually sugar that's bad, it's because the amount of sugar
of sugar in some of these things. I think the problem with sugar is it is not got many nutrients to it. So when you eat something loaded in sugar, you're getting energy, but you're not getting anything else. And these kids, they need like high density nutrients. They need nutrient dense food. And with sugary things, like whether it's just a donut or whatever it is, it's not giving the kids any nutrients to that. So yes, it will fill them up firstly, so then maybe they won't eat whatever's coming next. So it fills them up, but they're not filling them up with any nutrients, any good things that are helping the cells and your body and the hormones, etc. So yes, sugar in moderation is okay with a balanced diet, but I think that's the problem, is too much sugar in their little systems. And you see that with sweets, candy, lollipops. That is pure sugar. There's nothing to it. And you watch your child when they've had something like that. They like go into this hyper active state. They're very happy, that's for sure, for that few moments in time. They have a lot of energy. They're really happy. But as soon as that sugar gets taken out of our blood by insulin, taken out, then it drops, and then we get the most momentous meltdowns. So I think it's just about, I'm not saying, because it's tricky to kind of cut it out completely. I think in moderation, but as long as they've got a balanced diet that's around that, and if they maybe had a lollipop or a sweet at a kid's party or something, try and get them to have like a nice protein-rich meal after that, so that tries to kind of, so we don't get that meltdown. We're trying to cut that meltdown now. We're trying to get those blood sugars back and well balanced, and hopefully keep them on that path. But it's interesting because if you give your kids a little bit of insight into this and just let them see how they feel when they eat certain things, maybe it's maybe they've had like 2 portions of a cake or something, they'll say to you, Mama, I feel really sick after that, that I don't feel good. And just to let them kind of notice on their own sometimes as well. If they feel sick, they know they've had too much of it, and in moderation, and just trying to keep that so that they understand that some of these foods are making them feel a certain way as well. I think it's quite important. So it doesn't just come straight from us. They realize also.
And sugar is obviously very addictive.
Yeah.
So the more sugar you feed them, the more they're going to want. And the more they want. It's a vicious cycle, right?
It is.
And like I hardly give my kids any sugar. So even when they do go to a birthday party,
exactly,
quite lucky that they'll actually never even finish the cake. Yeah. We'll sometimes,
they'll
I'll be like,
they'll
feel it. And I'm like, oh, let's go home even before the cake's been cut. They couldn't care less. They're like, oh, all right.
Exactly.
And I have experienced that with my daughter, where she had too much sweet popcorn, and she came home and she felt terrible. She actually threw up because she felt so bad, because she has never eaten that much sugar in her life. And till date, she won't touch sweet popcorn. She's like, I can't eat that. That stuff is too much sugar, not good for me, not healthy. And so she's already so aware and so conscious. And exactly what you're saying is that let them decide how they're feeling right after having that meal.
Let them notice. Yeah, exactly. I think so. And I think, getting them with different flavors and things. Like my kids are now eating things like salsa verde, and which before they would be like, no, but because it's just now like always on the table, mom and dad always eating it, like, ooh, like the interest, ooh.
So tell me some of the snacks that you actually do feed your kids.
So at school, obviously a bit more tricky because a lot of schools are nut-free. But if you're at home, I mean, use nut butter, use nuts. They're really good, high protein. They've got carbs in them. So, even if it's like apple slices or banana and you dip it in a nice big dollop of almond butter or whatever it is, or tahini is really nice. You could do oat cake or a nice brown rice cake with some hummus or guacamole, or just mashed up avocado on there. Cottage cheese, if your kids are fine with dairy, cream cheese, something like that with a bit of protein. So try and make sure protein is there. Other options, just like vegetable sticks. The kids love that, and then have that with a dip, whether it's peanut butter, whether it's hummus, have it something so they can dip that in and get a little bit of more nutrition from the dips. What else could they do? Smoothies are quite nice because you can kind of pack those with a few things. Yeah. And you do a little bit of ground flax seeds in a smoothie. You could use yogurt. You could use Greek yogurt as a snack. You could put Greek yogurt with berries and a little bit of kind of. What is quite nice to do is kind of blitz up some of your nuts and seeds, so you've got like a little like sprinkle, like a flour, and then you just pop that on the top of their, even breakfast or, porridge or snacks for the yogurt, for example. You could put it on top, or you could add a spoon to a smoothie. So just kind of getting the nutrients in that way is really good. I'm trying to think what other snacks.
And also, I think it's important for people to know that like some kids have nut allergies. So like Navika, my daughter's got cashew, pistachio, and hazelnut. But she's okay with the rest. So also to know that it's not that all nuts are bad, and your kid cannot actually possibly be allergic to all the nuts. So find the nuts that they're actually okay with, and try to introduce those into their diet. But funny enough, that day she had that cake that you made, and she was actually fine.
So maybe she's okay, because that was fully cashew. Yeah. I know, So I think you don't have to completely focus on nuts and seeds, but you can have like a boiled egg can be their snack with a few cucumber sticks or something. The other thing I've noticed with kids is they'll say they've like gone off something. So for example, recently my little boy decided that he won't eat the cucumber sticks anymore that I give for snack or sometimes on meal times. So I just started cutting them into like discs. So same thing, just totally different way of cutting. nailing them, totally eating them. Like,
amazing.
So I think with those kind of things, when a kid stops eating certain things, cook it a different way, you know, instead of boiling your beetroots, you know, roast them, or grate a carrot instead of having carrot sticks. Like, try and change up the way that you present that food, and you'll be quite surprised. And like I was saying about, they kind of go off things. Like, a little boy, when he was weaning and stuff, his favorite thing was like sweet potato. He loved like dal and stuff, and we'd actually mix in a sweet potato. He loved it so much, and that'd be his favorite thing in the world. And then, like, for a whole year, he didn't touch sweet potatoes, probably because he may be sick of it, had too many of them or something, wouldn't touch it. Like, I kept putting it out there, but wouldn't touch it. And now, the last year, he's back on it. So I think just keep it. Doesn't mean that kid won't eat that. Just keep putting it out there, and hopefully one day they'll get back into it. So don't give up. Yeah.
You know, the other thing that I also noticed is it's the palates that you create from a young age. So if you're going to feed your kids chips and junk food and all of that from a young age, so that's creating their taste palates, and their taste buds will always want that and crave that all their life. But if from a young age you change their palate and you change their taste buds to enjoy and like all these natural nutrient dense foods and amazing stuff that you can actually create at home, and you can actually buy too these days, then they will grow up enjoying those and wanting those, and never actually crave the other stuff ever.
No, exactly. So I think it's so great if you can keep them in a little bubble for as long as they can when they're younger, and get them, like, you know, vegetable-led weaning is such a big thing now. Getting them, you know, at 6 months when you're weaning them, to do pure greens to start with. And so you're not just giving them the kind of butternut and the sweeter things to begin with. You're giving them the more bitter, kind of a different tasting things to start. So they've got that palate for, you know, spinach, for broccoli, for all of these vegetables before they get into the sweeter foods as well. It's really important. And I think, you know, it is tricky. And even as a mum, I find it tricky, you know, yes, at home, they eat so well.
Exactly.
And then, you know, you go out for lunch and they're fine when it's us. But if there's friends and they're eating, you know, chips and loads of ketchup or whatever it is, they'll want that. So I think it's just a little bit of balance. And for me, I've had to let go a little bit and be like, you know, yes, we're out. Yes, so-and-so's having that, so they'll want that. So they're going to have a little bit of that, and I've just got to let it go and not make such a big deal about it. But yeah, it is hard. I think that's why it'd be so great if we can just try and get that generation to think a different way about the foods they eat. And so when they have kids, there won't be this like big thing around processed food and all the sugary things. It will just be normal to eat the whole foods and things, you know. And sometimes I go to birthday parties and they're like, oh, Heath, just like live a little, let your kids live a little.
I'm like, that's not called living. I'm sorry. I get that all the time.
So I'm hoping
that
changes, and actually, you know, me and like you, for example, that is living, like giving our kids whole foods, actual foods that have come from
I love this child. I care about this child. I want to give him the best. And this is how I show my love.
Exactly.
Yes, I'll give my child a plate of vegetables, and that's me showing my love.
Exactly. I know. So hopefully that will change.
Yeah, I hope so too. I really hope that the model will change, and I hope many people listen to this so that they understand how important it is to change the mindset, to change the belief system. There are many restaurants in Nairobi that I will not go and eat.
Okay.
Because there is nothing for me to eat. Yeah. And there's nothing for my children to eat. Because if there's nothing for me to eat, then I'm not going to feed my children chips for the sake of eating chips. Exactly. And I just really hope that there are more and more restaurants like Heather's Kitchen, or maybe more and more branches of Heather's Kitchen. And I hope so. It's so important that we change the norm.
I think so.
We change the practice.
I think it's sad when you go to a restaurant and they give you a kids menu.
Oh.
And the kids' menu, you know, I wouldn't
Carbs.
like I wouldn't even touch. Well, it's not about carbs. It's just about it's fried. Everything's fried. You know, it's, you know, chicken nuggets and chips, or, you know, burger and chips, and pizza and chips, and you're just like, you know, where's the color? Where's exactly. So I think that needs to change.
Yes.
Because actually, kids will eat. Like, my kid loves sushi, so you know, we go and have sushi. So I think that needs to change, and, you know, kids' menu should be like our menu. I don't really believe that there should, like, our kids should eat differently to us.
Yeah.
So that's how we are at home, and I think it's really helped them, because everything that we have for our meals, we all eat the same. I don't do separate food for my kids than what I'm eating. We all eat the same. And I think it's so important that they see that.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I want to go back a little bit, though. I want to rewind a little bit into our school conversation.
Yes.
I know it's a hard one, because it's like, how do we make these changes?
Yeah.
How do we change? So I'm lucky because, as I said before, I can send packed lunch, so I can control that.
Yeah.
But where it comes to this many of the other schools, you can't send in packed lunch, and sometimes I have heard what kids are being fed. I've seen it. I've heard my sister-in-law even tell me what her son's being fed, and she's really into diet and nutrition, and so she finds it horrifying. Yeah. That this is what, especially because he's a vegetarian.
I think things need to be done. Like, I'm trying to have conversations with a few schools at the moment, but I think it needs to change, and I think there's so many mothers like you out there that want this change too. So I think if we can all get together, because if one person goes and says, you know, I want my kid to eat better at school, they're not really gonna listen to you. But if a whole group of you go, and a whole committee, then yes, they're going to change it. If it's the majority of people that want this change to happen, then they will do it. So yeah, that's something that I really want to focus on at school. I think some schools can be better than others, and their small changes are coming. But yeah, the mentality needs to change. You know, I think I've had a few conversations with us looking around schools, and what really shocked me is when I asked about, you know, the snacks and what they were having, and they said they believe that these children need sugar, and because they will run it off. They need that energy. And I just think that's also lack of education. No, you know, they need energy, yes, totally. But they need, like, good quality food to get that energy. They don't need sugar, pure sugar, like a sugary donut, to help them with their energy for the day. They need, like, nutrient dense food to get them through that day. So I think that we need to try and, like, change and just educate and just show them what a balanced diet looks like for a kid, and what they actually need and their requirements.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I think we really need to stand ground and create a ripple effect, create a community, create an awareness, and really
I think
keep telling the schools, pester them.
And I'm all for anyone, like, at home, your kids can eat how you like and how you want them to like. That's totally on you guys and what you want. But I don't think that our kids should be put in a situation where they've been eating like this for so long, and now they're being exposed to all this other food that they would never have at home.
It's also very confusing for them.
Yeah, it is confusing. And it's also, like, I feel in my kids, like, they kind of understand it because I talk to them a lot about, like, certain things, but then when they see all their other friends or, you know, whoever else, or family members or whoever is eating certain things that I've said, you know, in our house, we try not to have these things. We focus on kind of a balanced diet, and they'll be like, but why is so-and-so, why are they allowed to have sweets every day?
Why are they allowed?
Or why are they allowed to it's always about sweets, actually.
Yeah, it's always about sweets.
And I think that's a tricky conversation, because they see it and they're like, well, why are they allowed and I'm not allowed? So it's just trying to just kind of bring it home to them and say, look, I'm your mama, and this is my way of, like, making sure that you grow up and your body's as healthy as it can be, and that's what I'm trying to do for you, and you know, other people have different. It's different. They can do what they like. Everyone's in there.
With that, what I do with my kids. So my boys are a little older. They're 10, so it's a little easier for me to do that with them.
Yeah.
But we watch documentaries.
Yeah. Okay.
Like there was this documentary on Netflix, What the Health Twin Studies, and they're twins.
Oh yeah.
So they loved it. They were hooked to the TV. They were addicted. They're like, can we watch another documentary? Can we watch another? They listen to podcasts with me. They understand these things, and they see that the values it's brought me in my life and how it's benefited me in my health. So they understand that. So again, expose them from a young age to things like that.
Why not? Definitely.
They love watching TV and they'll watch anything. So why not make them watch something that's actually useful?
Exactly.
Yeah, all kids love watching
and
stuff.
I think with schools, I think the food side is something that we can help change. But they could bring in, you know, growing food. They should grow their own food.
Yes.
I think, don't know why schools don't have these awesome vegetable
patches.
Actually,
ISK does.
Oh, do there you go. But more schools should have them. You know, they should grow their own food or get the kids involved. And like maybe it's a cool, nice thing to do on a lunch break. Someone's in charge of watering the veg.
Yes.
You know, bringing this into the schools, having cookery lessons, which is starting now.
Yes.
But like getting kids involved in cookery and getting, I just think that's so important. And I think if we go that way, it will really help. You imagine the kids were eating their own veggies they were growing. That's so cool at school.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
So I think there's those changes that can be made. Yeah, definitely.
So we're going to wrap up very shortly. But so I just have a few more questions I wanted to ask you. Thank you so much, first of all. You've shared a lot, and I think that all of this information has really been really informative.
Good.
So what does wellness look like to you? Are we moving into a better space? And is there still work required? What do you think?
I think it's coming along. I do. I think the awareness is coming. I think what is a challenge is maybe the food industry a little bit. Like you go to the supermarket, and all the like sweets and things have like Paw Patrol on them or like cartoons on them, and I think that is somewhere that like there needs to be rules around this stuff. You know, you kids will be drawn to that, and that's why they obviously do it. But why is it around the foods that don't nourish us? Why is all these adverts for all this kind of junk food, processed food has all these adverts so that kids, you know, yes, it's good for, they get money because we buy it all, but that's so awful. Like that should not be allowed.
I agree.
You know, adverts and all these cartoons, why are they not around a bunch of bananas or something? You know, why is it that all the junk food is making kids go there? And it's just so awful because it's just spurring on, you know, childhood obesity, insulin resistance. It's just coming quite a big thing. So I think there's so much that needs to change still. But I think Kenya, you know, Kenya's getting there. You know, used to love going to the UK and going to all the health shops and the restaurants and being able to buy certain foods there. But now you can get it all here. It's coming along nicely. But yeah, there's just, I think what needs to change is the processed food and the like how readily available that is to people. And like if we do start from young age and get kids, you know, interested in cooking and how to prepare, a lot of the problems happen because people don't know how to cook. You know, in the US, and you know, the easy thing is to buy pre-made meals because they don't have time, they don't know how to cook with all these ingredients, so they buy these foods and they tend to be really high in, you know, trans fats, high in salt and sugar. So I think if we, like I said, if we just try with our kids from an early age, teach them to cook, teach them to grow our own food, you know, expose them to all these amazing veggies and fruits and all these whole foods. We start there, then, you know, later on it will change.
And teach them to understand food is your medicine.
It is.
If everyone starts thinking and believing food is your medicine, then you will start eating
the right way. Exactly. Because food is a form of healthcare. So why don't we, you know, focus and spend a little more on what we eat?
Yeah.
For sure.
Mental, physical, everything.
Yeah.
It all comes from food.
Yeah, exactly.
So my last question to you would be, anything you would like to ask me?
Oh, well, I think you kind of touched on so many things with your own kids, because I was going to ask how you feel, you know, in party situations. Do you feel like you're the odd one out sometimes when, you know, you're trying to like protect your kid and trying not to let her eat some of the sweetie things around? Do you feel like you're on your own a little bit, or do you feel like there's quite a few parents in the same wavelength as you?
So I think with my boys, it's easy because they're older
Yeah.
now, so they have a bit more of an awareness. They don't eat that much sugar
Yeah.
anyways. They've
Yeah.
gotten used to it. With Navika, because of the way I have actually brought her up,
Yeah.
it's been very different compared to the boys.
Okay.
So she's always been very mindful about what she eats. She loves her
Yeah,
vegetables. She loves her
great.
fruits. She'll actually go for a plate of vegetables as opposed to a plate of chips.
Yeah.
And going to birthday parties, it's just the way you train your child.
Yeah.
And also your energy matters. So
Exactly.
if you're going to that party and you're calm and you're
Yeah.
not like high strung and like, oh, I hope she doesn't eat any
Yeah,
sugar, I hope
yeah.
she doesn't do that, then she won't.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
oftentimes,
It's quite
even if
true.
she gets sugary snacks or sweets, she'll actually come in and
Give
give them
them
to
to
me.
you.
And the other thing is she's vegan. She's born vegan.
Oh, wow.
So the first thing she'll do is come and ask me, Mama, is
Are
this
these
vegan?
Yeah.
And most of the time it's not. So
Yeah.
she gets away quite
Yeah,
well.
that's quite good.
And
yeah.
I do feel like recently there are a few mums,
Yeah,
like in our
coming
little
in.
circle,
Yeah, that's
that are
nice.
coming in, and,
Yeah.
and that connection to them is so nice.
Exactly.
And more women and more people are getting aware of having a
Yeah,
bit more of a
exactly.
mindfulness when it comes to the amount of sugar
Yeah.
kids are exposed
Perfect. Yeah.
to. Yeah.
That's so great. Yeah.
Thank you, Heather.
You're
This has been
welcome.
amazing.
Thanks for having me. Yeah.
I really appreciate everything
It's
that
been
you've
good.
shared. I've learned a lot
Good.
too from you today.
Okay.
So thank you very much for
Thank
making
you for
the
having
time
me. Yeah.
to be here.
It's been great.